Hello guys, how's it going? Welcome to another Gwent City video. My name is MantyXD and today I'm accompanied by TragicStar. How's it going, TragicStar?
Hey guys, it's going good.
Alright, so usually I like to put like some fun decks and everything, but you're telling me that this deck, even though it has no name, actually it has a name. The name of the deck is I Don't Name Decks. And you're telling me that this is very competitive.
Yeah, most people don't consider Nilfgaard very strong this patch, but I think if you want to run a serious Nilfgaard deck right now, this is probably the best deck and probably the most dependable and reliable also.
Okay, so let's talk business. What are the strengths about this deck?
Okay, so first off, what's good about this deck is it thins very well, so you're almost always going to draw your deck reliably every game. Bides have always kind of had that going in their favor, and this deck's no different in that regard. The second thing it has going for it is it has a win condition. A lot of decks right now are kind of gimmicky, and they have something going for them that's very good in round one. But then once they hit round 2 and round 3, those small round with like 4 cards in your hand, they don't really have the firepower to close it out. But what this deck does is it has you save the gold cards for round 3, and that's kind of your win condition.
Okay, now let's go to the counterpart of that, and can you please tell me what are the weaknesses of this deck?
There's nothing that's too glaring. The deck is pretty well rounded. If there's one thing that's weak to, if you don't draw your answer cards to greedy decks, it can be a problem. I mean, you're running, especially your silver cards are going to be your answer to what your opponent's running, and if for some reason you don't draw those cards when you need them, it's such as in round 1, then that could be problems against some decks.
Okay, I see. Now let's get into the deck in general, and some of our viewers might not have the gold cards, and crafting gold cards can be very, like, you're very committed. Could you talk to me about replacing some of the gold cards?
Yeah, the most important gold cards would be Kahir and the Rain Farm. If you want to go for most important to least important, and then probably Bilge, and then the Zoltan Animal Tamer is probably the least important if you want to prioritize which ones you need or don't need. As far as substituting, Nilfgaard really doesn't have too many good gold cards to substitute in. They're probably one of the weakest factions when it comes to gold cards right now. But if you want to substitute something in, if you want a budget deck, and you're not playing the top 100 people in the world, and you can substitute, then, you know, anything that's good in round 3 in a small round. So anything that plays good in a small round would be cards like Vanilla Geralt, Vanilla Triss, Yennefer, like any of those kind of starter neutral golds are all going to be fine as long as they play for 13 points or so.
Okay, now once you start playing a new deck, you usually do a couple mistakes. Can you save us that time, and can you please explain to us a common mistake that a player can do playing this deck?
The easiest thing that you can do with this deck that's a mistake is playing your golds in round 1. If you play a lot of your cards like Rainfarn, Bilge, Kahir in round 1, then you're going to get to round 3, and you're going to have 3 cards in your hand, and you're going to have like 2 or 3 bronzes that only play for 8 points, and you're going to lose. So I think that's probably one of the biggest differences with Nilfgaard between a good player and a player that's not familiar with them is knowing which cards you can expend in round 1 and which cards you should save till towards the end. And even with the mulligan, like, this is one of the very few decks where you probably mulligan most of your gold cards away in round 1 just to make sure that you get the bronze cards in round 1 and you get them out of your deck.
We have talked about consistency versus being gimmicky. What's the difference between gimmicky and consistency?
Consistency is something that's going to happen. You know, you play 10 games, it's going to happen 8, 9 times out of 10. You know, if you're playing against an average person, you can reliably trust that your deck's going to be okay and you're not going to draw crap. Where with a gimmicky deck, it's something where if everything fits together perfectly, then you're going to win. You know, it's going to be one of those win more type of things where you're running this ridiculous combo, but you have to draw all the pieces together, or you're playing, let's say, a Trimmers deck, and you laugh because round 1 you keep trimmering their board over and over again, and then round 3 your top decks are, you know, more trimmer type cards, and then you just lose even if you're up a card. So that's more like what I would consider a gimmicky deck.
Awesome. Now, is there anything that I have missed that you would like to tell the viewers about this deck?
I just want to reinforce how important it is to save your cards. Like, you almost should never even play a gold in round 1. The only card I'd consider playing in round 1 would be the Zoltan Animal Tamer. But like the other ones, like especially if you can keep Roach, and you want to keep Roach for round 3, you want to keep the Hakim. And if you save these cards for round 3 with the Rainfarn and the Kahir, it's going to be a lot of value in just 3 gold cards. So if you go to round 3 with just 3 or 4 cards and they're all gold, each of those gold cards is going to play 20 plus points, and that's going to beat your opponent majority of the time.
All right. Well, we'll say then. Thank you so much for this deck. We're gonna take this into the ladder, and you know, let's give it a ride for this.
Yeah, no problem.